Hello, everyone. I'm really glad that you could join us today for our Bible reading. Today is May 30th, Sunday, May 30th. We're going to be in 2 Samuel, verse 15:23. We're going to read through the end of 16. We're going to be in John 18:25 through 19:22, Psalm 119, 113 to 128, and Proverbs 16, 10 and 11. So let's just go ahead and dive into 2 Samuel chapter 15, starting verse 25. Everyone cried loudly as the king and his followers passed by. They crossed the Kidron Valley and went out toward the wilderness. Zadok and all the Levites came along carrying the ark of the covenant of God. They set down the ark of God, and Abiathar offered sacrifices, and everyone passed out of the city. Then the king instructed Zadok to take the ark of God back into the city. If the Lord sees fit, David said, he'll bring me back to see the ark and the tabernacle again. But if he is through with me, then let him do what seems best to him. The king also told Zadok the priest, look, here's my plan. You and Abiathar should return quickly to the city with your son Ahimaaz and Abiathar's son Jonathan. I will stop at the shallows of the Jordan River, and wait for a report from you. So Zadok and Abiathar took the ark of God back to the city and stayed there. David walked up the road to the Mount of Olives, weeping as he went. His head was covered and his feet were bare as a sign of mourning. And the people who were with him covered their heads and wept as they climbed the hill. When someone told David that his advisor Ahithophel was now backing Absalom, David prayed, O Lord, let Ahithophel give Absalom foolish advice. When David reached the summit of the Mount of Olives, where the people worshipped God, Hushai the Archite was waiting there for him. Hushai tore his clothing and put dirt on his head as a sign of mourning. But David told him, if you go with me, you'll only be a burden. Return to Jerusalem and tell Absalom, I will now be your advisor, O king, just as I was your father's advisor in the past. Then you can frustrate and counter Ahithophel's advice. Zadok and Abiathar, the priests, will be there as well. Tell them about the plans being made in the king's palace, and they will send their sons Ahimaaz and Jonathan to tell me what's going on. So David's friend Hushai returned to Jerusalem, getting there just as Absalom arrived. When David had gone a little beyond the summit of the Mount of Olives, Ziba, the servant of Mephibosheth, was waiting there for him. He had 2 donkeys loaded with 200 loaves of bread, 100 clusters of raisins, 100 bunches of summer fruit, and a wineskin full of wine. What are these for? The king asked Ziba. And Ziba replied, the donkeys are for the king's people to ride on, and the bread and summer fruit are for the young men to eat. The wine is for those who become exhausted in the wilderness. And where is Mephibosheth, Saul's grandson? The king asked him. He stayed in Jerusalem. He said, today I will get back the kingdom of my grandfather Saul. In that case, the king told Ziba, I'll give you everything Mephibosheth owns. I bow before you, Ziba replied. May I always be pleasing to you, my lord the king. As King David came to Bahurim, a man came out of the village cursing them. It was Shimei, son of Gera, from the same clan as Saul's family. He threw stones at the king and the king's officers and all the mighty warriors who surrounded them. Get out of here, you murderer, you scoundrel, he called to David. The Lord is paying you back for all the bloodshed in Saul's clan. You stole his throne, and now the Lord has given it to your son Absalom. At last you would taste some of your own medicine, for you are a murderer. Why should this dead dog curse my lord and king? Abishai, son of Zeruiah, demanded. Let me go over and cut off his head. No, the king said. Who asked your opinion, you sons of Zeruiah? If the Lord had told him to curse me, who are you to stop him? And then David said to Abishai and to all his servants, my own son is trying to kill me. Doesn't this relative of Saul have even more reason to do so? Leave him alone and let him curse, for the Lord has told him to do it. And perhaps the Lord shall see that I am being wronged, and will bless me because of these curses today. So David and his men continued down the road, and Shimei kept pace along with them on a nearby hillside, cursing and throwing stones and dirt at David. The king and all who were with him grew weary along the way, so they rested when they reached the Jordan River. Meanwhile, Absalom and all the army of Israel arrived at Jerusalem, accompanied by Ahithophel. When David's friend Hushai the Archite arrived, he went immediately to see Absalom. Long live the king, he replied. Long live the king. Is this the way you treat your friend David? Absalom asked him. Why aren't you with him? I'm here because I belong to the man who's chosen by the Lord and by all the men of Israel, Hushai replied. And anyway, why shouldn't I serve you? Just as I was your father's advisor, now I'll be your advisor. Then Absalom turned to Ahithophel and asked him, what should I do next? Ahithophel told him, go and sleep with your father's concubines, for he has left them here to look after the palace. Then all Israel will know that you've insulted your father beyond hope of reconciliation, and they will throw their support to you. So they set up a tent on the palace roof where everyone would see it, and Absalom went in and had sex with his father's concubines. Absalom followed Ahithophel's advice just as David had done, for every word Ahithophel spoke seemed as wise as though it had come directly from the mouth of God himself. Then we jump forward to John chapter 18, starting in verse 25, and we go down through 19:22. Peter's second and third denials. Meanwhile, as Simon Peter was standing by the fire warming himself, they asked him again, "You're not one of his disciples, are you?" And he denied it, saying, "No, I am not." But one of the household slaves of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, said, "Didn't I just see you out there in the olive grove with Jesus?" And again Peter denied it, and immediately a rooster crowed. Jesus' trial before Caiaphas ended in the early hours of the morning, and then he was taken to the headquarters of the Roman governor. His accusers didn't go inside because it would defile them, and they wouldn't be allowed to celebrate Passover. So Pilate, the governor, went out to them and asked, "What is your charge against this man?" "We wouldn't have handed him over to you if he weren't a criminal," they retorted. "Then take him away and judge him by your own law," Pilate told them. "Only Romans are permitted to execute someone," the Jewish leaders replied. This fulfilled Jesus' predictions about the way he would die. And then Pilate went back to his headquarters and called for Jesus to be brought to him. "Are you the king of the Jews?" he asked him. Jesus replied, "Is this your own question, or did others tell you to ask me?" Am I a Jew?" Pilate retorted. "Your own people and their leading priests brought you to me for trial. Why? What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not an earthly kingdom. If it were, my followers would fight to keep me from being handed over to the Jewish leaders. But my kingdom is not of this world." Pilate said, "So you are a king?" And Jesus responded, "You say I'm a king. Actually, I was born and came into the world to testify to the truth. All who love the truth recognize what I say is true." "What is truth?" Pilate asked him, and then he went out again to the people and told them, "He's not guilty of any crime, but you have a custom of asking me for one prisoner each year. Would you like me to release this king of the Jews?" But they shouted back, "No, not this man. We want Barabbas." Barabbas was a revolutionary. And then Pilate had Jesus flogged with a lead-tipped whip. The soldiers wove a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and they put a purple robe on him. "Hail, King of the Jews," they mocked as they slapped him across the face. Pilate went outside again and said to the people, "I'm going to bring him out to you now, but understand clearly I find him not guilty." And then Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, and Pilate said, "Look, here is the man." When they saw him, the leading priests and temple guards began shouting, "Crucify him, crucify him." "Take him yourselves and crucify him," Pilate said. "I find him not guilty." The Jewish leaders replied, "By our law he ought to die because he called himself the Son of God." When Pilate heard this, he was more frightened than ever. He took Jesus back into the headquarters again and asked him, "Where are you from?" But Jesus gave no answer. "Why don't you talk to me?" Pilate demanded. "Don't you realize I have the power to release you or to crucify you?" Then Jesus said, "You would have no power over me at all unless it were given to you from above. So the one who handed me over to you has the greater sin." And then Pilate tried to release him, but the Jewish leaders shouted, "If you release this man, you're no friend of Caesar. Anyone who declares himself a king is a rebel against Caesar." When they said this, Pilate brought Jesus out to them again. And then Pilate sat down on the judgment seat of the platform that's called the Stone of Pavement, in Hebrew, Gabbatha. It was now about noon on the day of preparation for the Passover, and Pilate said to the people, "Look, here is your king." "Away with him," they yelled. "Away with him, crucify him." "What? Crucify your king?" Pilate asked. "We have no king but Caesar," the leading priest shouted back. And then Pilate returned Jesus over to them to be crucified. So they took Jesus away, carrying the cross by himself. He went to a place called the Place of the Skull, in Hebrew, Golgotha. There they nailed him to the cross. 2 others were crucified with him, one on either side, Jesus between them. And Pilate posted a sign on the cross that read, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." The place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and the sign was written in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek so that many people could read it. Then the leading priests objected and said to Pilate, "Change it from the King of the Jews to he said, 'I am the King of the Jews.'" And then we go back to Psalm 119, and we read verses 113 through 128. I hate those with divided loyalties, but I love your instructions. You are my refuge and my shield. Your word is my source of hope. Get out of my life, you evil-minded people, for I intend to obey the commands of the Lord my God. O Lord, sustain me as you promised that I may live. Do not let my hope be crushed. Sustain me and I'll be rescued. Then I will meditate continually on your decrees. But you have rejected all who stray from your decrees. They are only fooling themselves. You skim off the wicked of the earth like scum, and no wonder I obey your laws. I tremble in fear of you, O Lord. I stand in awe of your regulations. Don't leave me to the mercy of my enemies, for I have done what is just and right. Please guarantee a blessing for me. Don't let the arrogant oppress me. My eyes strain to see your rescue, to see the truth of your promise fulfilled. I am your servant. Deal with me in unfailing love and teach me your decrees. Give discernment to me, your servant, and then I will understand your laws. Lord, it is time for you to act, for these evil people have violated your instructions. Truly, I love your commands more than gold, even the finest gold. Each of your commandments is right. That's why I hate every false way. Then we go forward to Proverbs chapter 16, and we are in verses 10 and 11. A king detests wrongdoing, for his rule is built on justice. The king is pleased with words from righteous lips. He loves those who speak honestly. Then we go to Oswald Chambers for May 30th, and it's yes, but. Trust completely in God, and when he brings you to a new opportunity or adventure, offering it to you, see that you take it. We act like pagans in a crisis. Only one out of an entire crowd is daring enough to invest his faith in the character of God. And it's from Luke 9:61. Lord, I will follow you, but boy, does that one hit home. I'll follow you, but because, man, I do that a lot and I struggle with that a lot. I want to follow God and I try and I kind of go along, and then there's always feels like there's kind of a but on the end of it. God, I'll follow you, but please don't make it hard, or I'll follow you, but please don't take this away, or whatever it may be, and I love how he says here, when God brings you to a new opportunity of adventure. What a great way to see life, that the new things we encounter and even the difficult things we encounter are an adventure, because we get to see how God works them out. We get to see his character in action. And, I've been thinking a lot about faith because it's what I'm doing the message on this week. It's the first baptism we've had at Faith State Line, which is really exciting. And so we're talking about faith and about baptism. And, the reality is that faith is trust in the truth. That's a phrase that kept coming up to me, was it's trust in the truth of God's character. And, God is good and he's with us and we can trust him. And so I don't know if you're facing something right now that's maybe a little tough, or something you're kind of worried about, something that, is you're not sure how it's going to go, or you're worried it might go a certain way, or maybe it's something brand new, something brand new that you're undertaking or that God's leading you toward. See it as an adventure to see his faithfulness and his character come through. So I hope you have a great Lord's Day today, or had a great Lord's Day today, depending on when you're listening to this. And we will launch into a new week. Have a great day.